beaming into your mind like a ray of cosmic revelation, smoshing through the mainstream like a comet of prophecy. You're listening to Planet Vrilock, your podcast for everything super, psionics, and magic tech. Yes, welcome to my show, and I am your not-so-humble host, Herr Doktor von Vrilock, master of the phantom frequency and the psionic arts. Ladies and gentlemen, I bid you welcome. Tonight's podcast, Vrilock Psionics Benchmarking for 2021. As we approach the bend into 2021, I do believe it is high time to recap over some key areas of the world circuit and the direction of techno-econometric combat. Yeah, try saying that 10 times. So pull your mind out of the veil of the politico theater and wash the dramatage out from your ears. Briefing. Let's go. Current state of the world techno-econometric war. I don't think I said that right. I think I meant economical war. China and Asia account for 87% of all technology patents filed within just the recent 10 years alone. Where the weakness might lie is twofold. One, Asia is failing to invest more prominently in the area of innovation. And number two, continued reliance upon foreign builders for their core components in these technologies. That may or may not be entirely true. But let's go forward. Their strength, particularly with China, is in the landing of honey trap loans to countries likely to fail to pay and in some cases owe 40% of what they've borrowed. Those are simply ballpark guesses. The data is subject to change, but it's somewhere around there. The withdrawal of Washington has allowed China to turn Western Balkans to the favor of the Chinese. Yeah, so people in those parts of the world might turn a blind eye to Chinese imprisoning Muslims or tormenting Tibetans. This is a strategic location, again speaking of Western Balkans, particularly for China's boating, cargo ships, and possibly naval operations. Driving forward with business first, no nonsense, politics secondary. China continues to prove to the rest of the world that might equals right if executed strategically on their end and with a loss of focus on our end in the West. Well, that too is subject to change, I can assure you. Many of us are focused, and the world will change where might won't always prove right. Not in the new world, but I'll get to that in a moment. My foresight shows me, however, a number of paths, but one of these temporal tunnels magnified in my psionic lens, which is an outcome bringing the West very dark tidings. It is possible. Pay heed. That is a folding of the Western powers. Simply unlocking the locks and guards for outsider and foreign power to march right into the good old U.S. and those morons in control of our nation, I foresee, will hope we, the people, will just go along with their move to lay our cards down on the table and take this most painful loss. Now, of course, I'm speaking in terms of visions, which I will disclose a much older vision with you towards the end of this podcast. Moving on, Russia ceases to be the world's gas station. Good. Because frankly, I think Moscow is a bit too far for me to drive to the pump, old boy. Yes, well now Russia is the world grain provider, or whatever it's called. Korea moves forward with artificial sun, and this time round, boys and girls, the stability of this construct lasted a good full 20 seconds, and that is significant by a 5-second improvement from their previous test in 2018. Now, worldwide, collaborating science and technological efforts. Hello, NASA. They have discovered possible intersolar highways. Well, very good. Maybe even intergalactic. Just a theory, which could decrease the time it takes to travel through outer space in our solar system and quite possibly beyond. Yes, to the stars and beyond. This finding comes from a thorough study of both data and running computation models of how asteroids reach Jupiter's vicinity in our solar system. And they reach Jupiter, these asteroids, at rates of speed beyond our current rocket technology's capability. This discovery of manifolds in our solar system have the potential to act as cosmic highways for space travel. That's right, space cowboys and cowgirls, saddle up. And in some potential projections, what might ordinarily take 100 years to reach by spaceship could effectively be reduced to a mere 10-year trip. That is a very optimistic forecast and trajectory for space travel, boys and girls, in the very foreseeable future. So not all is doom and gloom. The problem for many of us today, however, is where we are going to be left out or fall behind. I have a number of ideas to work psionics to hedge the future a bit, so that some of these emerging technologies will serve us rather than wipe us off the board game entirely. But I will address these projects in my club at vrilock.club if you so choose to become a paid member and support my work. And to some of the psionicists in my circle of elders, I will disclose these ideas in due time at our meetings. For the time being, let us push on with a better view of 2021 and determine the scope of its mechanisms and wherein psionics can and will make a difference. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. As you may already be fully aware, or well, perhaps not so fully aware, politicians steer the direction of the body social, whether the trajectory for that society is forward, backward, or simply around in circles. That sounds familiar. It does seem at times like we've all been on this wild goose chase, has it not? But I digress. It is important to come to realization that policy makers are more often than not completely so absorbed in short-term growth, where we are headed in the New World Order. Where we are headed in the New World Order, if there is indeed order possible, is a territory wherein we truly must learn to project as long-term thinkers, particularly if we're working psionics. This is something rather difficult for Westerners, but I assure my listeners that our prosperity depends on our adaptability, and starting now. So do pay attention. A lot of folks were afraid that the globalists would do away with the old monetary system, simply ditch our dollar lenders and bust the banks. Unfortunately, those fears are not so warranted as you may have been led to believe. Many existing technocrats aim to work alongside government to help restructure it. I, unlike my technocrat counterparts, see that as well somewhat rather problematic, but I am willing to watch and see how the technocracy reshapes policy making. Though, and I will confess, I'd prefer to do away with the entire concept of government and work directly with a well-organized and competent system of technology which engages human minds as partners in the process of reshaping our world. That's right. Very direct, very engaging, intimate. We can still make it happen, ladies and gentlemen, with psionics. But now let's not get too far ahead of what I'm driving at here. What am I talking about? My goal is to follow along with the direction of the new emerging leaders, many interesting international professionals taking on the challenges we face during our most critical time in history and the post-COVID foreseeable forecast. Our interest, I say our because I do share a similar agreement to the direction of technocracy insofar as our short-term and long-term goals should be an economy and society which is based on equity of law, inclusion, and helping folks adjust in education, trade skills, and acquiring what one and all needs to live a prosperous life. And let us be clear, we cannot be prosperous at the cost to any individual or group of people. I did say inclusive and equity, did I not? So that is the general idea I wish to continue with forward into the days and nights ahead. Let us meditate on this and come to our individual understandings of what this future world might require of us as individuals and as a society as a whole. We need environmental sustainability. That's a word I'm not used to saying so often. Environmental sustainability. And a collaborative effort toward inclusive prosperity. All for one and one for all. Yes, unity, though, I tend to be a little shy of. I think some separation in some way is best. Independent thought is very good. Oh yes, delicious. As the old saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. This time we live in demands new in this time we live in. Everything demands new innovation to policy. But now remember that in the area of technology, there are some countries where innovation is not the driving motive for investment. Too many are investing in the so-called machine learning. Okay, if we look forward to wisdom from the good old United Kingdom, that there are other directions in which to R&D, research and development, remedy the whole AI thing. Whatever it's called, AIIA. Then so we might give some consideration to these areas of business investment and, of course, scientific research. But now I'm sort of straying away from the topic of policy making here, and so let us consider what this means and what the incentive behind policy changes could be. Or not. Instead, let us look at psionics in retrospect here. What have we accomplished? All right, looking back at our past projects in psionics, I can readily see a number of problems of which I might have avoided some errors if only I had not favored the proposals of certain projects without solid forethought. Namely, there was one sigil project. And I might have given a little more consideration before tethering my other operator's operation. As well, our Psionic Brotherhood nearly failed at the 5G rollout intervention Magick operation. However, it is believed the frequency established today is going to be safe. Yeah, knock on wood, and even necessary to move forward with the technology that will make life better. Well, I know it will make the Internet of Things faster. I'm not so sure if it will make life better in and of itself. We must watch. The real downside, however, is that there are those who do wish to superimpose an ideology and idiocy into the minds of people that to own nothing and to have absolutely no privacy is a blessing of the AI gods, and some nonsense rather like that. Let us erase hysterical muses from our minds at present right now, and instead look forward with more informative mentality. Perhaps as I had intuited years ago, this coming crisis in the world was actually and unfortunately necessary to move forward. Changes. Painful. It's reminding me of a David Bowie song, but I won't sing it to you. I'll spare you my singing. And the plan to transform the world as we knew it, yes, into a more inclusive and fair system is a positive long-term pursuit, if it is indeed honest. We must, as psionics, consider the globalist in a very loose joint venture. And by that, I do not mean directly, more at what I've authored in my books such as Yellow Magick, and where on the web I have outlined in some of my articles and blogs how we might shape the future of technology via our psionics projections. That means we follow these good boys and bad boys and girls. Yes, we must be inclusive. Let's not leave out the ladies. We must follow them in parallel. The only real difference I will speak of here tonight is that I am no longer speaking merely of technological advancements solely, but of a broader view of the world vision, in which the work toward a better world will have a wider and far-reaching scope of influence and remedying or remodeling for society. Yes, good old society. We are at a very important time. Where we are at in the West might be similar to how we were in the 18th century and the Age of Enlightenment, when the invention of lightning rods was deemed by the orthodox and the dogmatic. Sorry, I couldn't resist. The dogmatic as an affront to God. Of course, this also had more to do with the politics of those deemed credible and of whose whimsical thoughts were regarded as important at the time, a time when consensus mechanisms were devoid of any real rationale. Yeah, it's starting to remind me of that old song by Bad Religion, "The voice of God is government." The desire to hold humanity in a state of ignorance has ever been our real drawback from prosperity and mindful new discovery. I'm so sorry, Nikola Tesla. Aren't we all? And miraculous invention. So too are we in the West held back by faulty beliefs that we are the ultimate icon of status and stature in the world, born out of iron ignorance and cast in distorted pride and prejudice. At this grand conjunction, those willing to move forward will be inclusive to his or her brothers and sisters in the next epic transformation of the species. What will 2021 be for you? Now we get to the important stuff, the good stuff, which you're all waiting for. Yes, stop drooling, Consider this question carefully. What will 2021 be for you? What you so choose to believe or entertain as a truth or necessity will define the actions you pursue and the associations you will build upon. Will these foundations project your mind forward into greater realization? Or will you be held back by shared wish fantasy and stubborn one-sided prerogatives? By 2025, the UN aims to end child labor. Good thing, too. I hope they mean it. But can we not speed things up a bit with psionics? Well, you're listening tonight, and you probably have a miraculous prayer board. Or maybe you've read one of my good books, such as Psionic Necromancer and Psionic Splicing. These tools I've used to resurrect the disembodied personalities of patriots from the World War II era to go out and fill the hearts of the general public. Some success there has been accomplished for the time in which it was needed. But now it is your turn. The dice are in your hands. What will you do? It's your move. What will you do with this knowledge and your training in my club, Vrilock.club, and keep the magic high? To date, even with the worldwide coronavirus, no threat is entirely unbeatable and no challenge insurmountable. No challenge is insurmountable, particularly if we have psionics on our side. And we do! Terrorist attacks, economic devastation, virus pandemic. We must take these constructs and turn disadvantage into a new direction of incentive for some positive prospects and real-world do-it-now changes. And long-term thinking. Yes, don't forget the long-term thinking, precious. That might be hard for some folks to wrap their minds around just yet, but watch and observe the rapid shift of powers coming around the bend, and you will begin to open your mind's eye to a world incredibly new and possibly even much more inspirational, with new innovations and breakthroughs which will not enslave us, but rather liberate us from some of our preconceptions of just what is a prosperous lifestyle. I kid you not. What you thought you knew is about to be challenged. Or as old Master Yoda said in the Star Wars trilogy, "Luke, you must unlearn what you have learned," or something rather like that. What I would like to leave my listeners with tonight is a short saying from a story in my own life, which might help you all to make some time more worthwhile for you. It began for me when I was just phasing through rather short-lived jobs here and there. When 9/11 hit the airwaves while I was at work in a medical billing company. Yes, there was prior to this event a series of visions I had been having at night, during which my mind's eye was filled with virulent scenes of neighbors attacking one another, and without any apparent provocation or even the slightest premeditation. It was all very real to me, and I could not fathom why these things were happening to me. So, okay, 9/11 happens, and then I lost my job shortly after this. Some months went by without a job in sight that could earn enough money to pay back the savings we used for rent. Yes, like you, I know what it feels like not to be able to pay rent. Well, as the universe would have it, I was offered a rare opportunity to travel to and live for a time in Japan. Before leaving for Japan, I was telling my stepfather how uncertain I felt about going to Japan at the last minute because I had very little understanding of how a job would manifest for me there and what exactly I would be getting paid and if I could truly live in another country where I was, only mildly familiar with the language. To this, my stepfather replied, after reminding me I had attended an international school in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia as a small boy, and that I had no problems living abroad that he could remember. My stepdad was a simple-spoken man when he did speak to me, and so he said to me this: "Tom, make the most of it." So with that story now over, I leave you all to your story and the New World Order ahead, and I sincerely say to you all now, make the most of it. Thank you for joining me on Planet Vrilock Psionics podcast tonight, and thank you for supporting my research work, and thank you those of you who have donated. Prizes and good things coming up in a very near podcast, so stay tuned. Until next time, as always, keep the magic high. This is Tom Vrilock, signing out.